Give a wave to Ron Champion, who I know will be watching this as well. Hi, Ron.
Hi, Ron. Long time no see. Hope you're doing well.
Yeah, hopefully catch up soon. Lotus 001, we're now with Matt Reed, who I think you've probably heard me saying to Ron, you are the current custodian.
Custodian is exactly the right word, John.
Yeah,
exactly.
Yeah.
The right word. I agree.
So when did you get this car? It was about 3-4 years ago, I think.
2 years at the end of January, so 2.5 years ago now.
2.5 years ago.
Yeah.
And you've fully rebuilt it.
Well, I mean, to be fair to Ron, it was so well built in the first place. I think it's probably more a refurbishment and get things running again. So the car, engineering-wise, body-wise, was phenomenal.
Yeah.
The fact that 27 years it's had in the shed, Ron very kindly ran the engine quite regularly. So again, that
helps.
That helps a lot. So for me, I've tried to just carry things on. So it's a refresh. A lot of electrics, a lot of the
Premier wiring did the electrics.
Premier wiring.
I saw Premier wiring. I saw you marking up the loom and sending it off, and then the guys up there just put one together. It was pretty much plug and play, wasn't it?
They were absolutely brilliant. To be fair, absolutely phenomenal. And to be fair, took every switch, laid it all out on the board, and handed me back a loom. So now the car, everything runs off the Premier wiring loom. Literally every cable was taken out. It's an entire Premier wiring loom throughout. And actually, for future proofing, I don't think we ever will, but if we want to go and put heater and matrix,
it's there.
Wiring's all there, neatly tucked away, fuses.
Heated seats.
Oh yeah, heated steering wheel. John, got to get with the times.
Right, this is the UK, of course. Yeah,
exactly. Yeah. I think the biggest thing probably was the paintwork, because the primer structure failed away over time. So all the green, it's quite nice actually, because the green is
the original green as well, isn't it?
Well, it's the original green. So kindly, Ron has got a phenomenal memory.
Well, so depth of knowledge.
Depth of knowledge and a phenomenal memory as well for what happened in the early 90s.
Because it was a mix of paints as well, wasn't it? It was
two-thirds of a can of. I asked Ron, so I said, "What colour is it?" Because I need to paint it again. I didn't want to just turn up and get it micro, measured. Which is what I did do in the end.
Yeah.
But it was 2/3 of a can of British Racing green and a third of a can of Cortina yellow.
I was going to say it's a green and yellow mix, but the yellow doesn't really, well, it's obviously green. It comes across as green, but that little yellow tinge to it as well.
Yeah, that little yellow tinge. So it's not a British Racing green colour. But the yellow parts on the car are as Ron painted them. So the little nick in the rear wheel arch with a little bit of filler in it. Part of me wants to make it all immaculate.
But
part of it is...
Was that Ron?
It wasn't me. But no comment. It could have been. But I think part of it is there are some parts. The exhaust is a really good example where it just the chrome had perished with time. I think it was a motorbike exhaust at the time.
Yeah.
But again, following the spirit, that's actually Caterham HPC exhaust. I don't care what it was. No, it was on Facebook Marketplace. And I swapped it for a nice bottle of red. Wow. So the days of going to scrapyards getting bits. Obviously, you can't get near them these days.
No, exactly.
So Yeah. But this, I think, the seat belts have come off Facebook Marketplace. The exhaust of a chat forum, as I say, swapped for a bottle of wine.
It's back to the original ethos, though, of a low cost.
Yeah, it's just how it works in this generation. Absolutely, it's still using the same principles. The mirror is one I found in the box that Ron gave me, so I glued that on Thursday. It's you can't see anything else; it just shakes like mad. But, I think every part. You
don't need to see what's behind you, though, do you?
But it does show you how well things were made, because if I haven't put, I put a couple of light bulbs in the illuminations on some of the dials, but every other bulb is the ones that were in the car in the 90s.
Wow!
So all of every single instrument item now with the Premier wiring loom in it works. Apart from the fuel gauge. I'm getting there.
Don't need that.
Well, just put a stick in it, it's okay. But every gauge is the same, apart from we swapped the ammeter out for voltmeters. I did an alternator exchange for the dyno, which kind of made sense with the new alternator in it.
Yeah.
Otherwise, everything is even the map reading light is run around a scrapyard with the bulb in it.
When Ron here built it, absolutely brilliant. Well, it's been an absolute pleasure speaking to you.
And you, John, good to see you as well.
Yeah, good to see you. Great to see your car. This was the car we were coming to see.
Oh, it's beautiful. It's very kind of you. And I think it's great. Custodian is a great word for it. This is Ron's history, Ron's car.
Exactly.
We're just the current overseers of care for it. That's the way it works.
You're doing a good job.
Oh, it's a pleasure.
Yeah. So,
thank you, John.
Keep looking after it.
one of the thoughts that came to me is that as we proceed into the documentary, we want to look back, if you will, on your life and what the legacy of the Locost is. Now, I can say what I think, and the Locost community has become huge, and it's all because of you.
Yeah, okay, fine. Yeah, if I hadn't written the book, it would never have happened, would it?
It absolutely would never have happened. But I'm wondering, if you don't mind, from your perspective, where do you see where do you see the low-cost movement going forward into the future?
Well, I think there's a little bit of change, certainly over here in this country. I can't speak for other countries, but people are starting to get into motor vehicle do-it-yourself again.
Mm-hmm.
It all went very, very quiet for a lot of reasons, such as they weren't teaching hand skills in schools. They stopped that years ago. And the ease of which new drivers, young people, anyone can now get a brand new car over here very cheaply with a
Yes.
leasing program. If you drive around residential areas now, on everyone's drive and in their garage, if the door's open, there are new cars or newish cars, very few over 2 years old.
Yeah.
When the book came out, or when I did the book, if you drove around the same estates, weekends, there'd be chaps outside with their cars on ramps,
Mm-hmm.
laying underneath with banners and doing their own jobs. Well, people just don't do that. But it's starting to come back again.
It truly is, isn't it?
Yeah, and one of the growth build your own car things over here is cycle cars. Have you heard of cycle cars?
It is a phenomenon that's huge. And I think it touches on exactly what you said. It's affordability and availability of parts. People can get into it and they can get started with or without a lot of technical background, and they can make something that goes.
Yeah, exactly. In fact, I might become involved, not necessarily in a physical way, but in an advisory way, because my nephew, who is a school headmaster, has 2 children that want to build something, and he spoke to me and said, "What's your suggestion, Ron?" He was thinking about a go-kart of some sort, and I said, "Well, look, if we're going to do that, have a look at these sites on cycle cars." Well, he's come back to me and said, "Well, look, it seems fantastic, Ron. I've shown it to the children and they'd love to build something like this." And I'm talking about his own children, not the children in his school.
Yeah.
And we've started collecting bits.
Oh, lovely.
I've got tools and equipment. Physically, I'm not able to do an awful lot now.
Yeah.
But I'm certainly got a wealth of experience and a lot of advice. So with loan of tools, equipment, and me overseeing the project, we're hoping in the new year to start building this cycle car. Naturally, me being me, I'll keep a photographic record of everything.
Yes.
And write everything down that we do.
Yeah.
But that's the next project. But I think it's all come back. I think that low-cost building is coming back, particularly on the racing front. I went to kit car shows 4 or 5 years ago, and there may have been a dozen low costs. Recently, there's people pulling them out of the garages and dusting them off again and getting them going and bringing their low costs out again. I think
Yes.
there's a big change.
Yes, I think you're quite right. I mean, I think that if you look back at history, through history, you can see that, you know, many years ago, just as you mentioned, you could go through the junkyards and you can pull from the bins all the parts you wanted because they were literally laying around. You could find a donor vehicle. It's not as easy to do now, but there still are, excuse me, modern cars that can be used, and they are using them.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's that's the other thing, of course. That there are no scrap yards as we used to have in the old days with piles and piles of old cars.
Yeah.
You couldn't go around salvaging bits of them and taking them home now. That's all finished, and I think that also contributed to the demise of car building.
Yeah.
But I think cycle cars are certainly one of the ways to go. Another thing that's very interesting over here, people take a fairly modern car, perhaps 10 or even 15 years old, and turn it into something called a rat rod. Have you heard of? Do you get those in America?
It's
Canada?
very big. Where I live, it's very, very big. And excuse me for saying so. I know some people that build these things, and it's huge. One thing about North American culture, we're a lot more about show than we are about go. Yeah. But it is a phenomenon that's big. I mean, you mentioned the cycle carts, and to me, when I think of the cycle carts, I also think it's an analog, if you will, to the book that you wrote about build your own buggy, which is fabulous.
Yeah. I don't think I've got a cycle car book in me, but
there's still time.
You never know. Yeah. You never know. If I video the build, I might send it over to you and you can put it on YouTube or something.
I would be honored, just absolutely honored to do that. It'll be great.
Yeah. Well, now you've said that, I will video it from start to finish.
Well, you mentioned it.
I reckon if we start in the new year, with a bit of luck, we should have it ready for the summer. So it's probably a 6 or 7 months project.
Yeah.
What we've got to decide on, and I'm spending Christmas Day with this family, so it'll be a topic for discussion with the children. What we've got to decide on is what we're going to replicate, because again, I can only speak for this country, but over here they replicate them on pre-war race cars like Bugattis and ERAs and that sort of thing. Is that what they do over there?
Very much so, yeah.
Oh, right, great.
Yeah.
So this video would be of interest over there as well then.
Yeah. Oh, yes. It'd be topical, and I assure you that with your name attached to it, it would do exceedingly well on YouTube.
Really?
Oh, yeah.
Well, you've given me a lot of encouragement.
Well, no problem at all. Anything to lift the spirit and give us motivation to move forward is great.
Yeah. Great. Okay. Well, after the Christmas holiday, I'll even do some video of us getting together and discussing it as well.
Yeah, absolutely. I'd be honored, and I'd be happy to do the video editing, all that sort of stuff. We do that stuff at Seven Spot for a number of different, I guess, content providers. So it's an honor to do that for you.
Oh, great.
Yeah.
One of the questions you asked me online was, I can't remember your exact words, but what have I got out of Locost, this book? How do I feel about it?
Yes.
Well, I've got to be perfectly honest.
Yes.
The thing that I'm most pleased and most delighted with is the number of people that it's made happy. I've been to low-cost race meetings, and there will be dozens and dozens of people with their race cars there, and they're all happy to be involved and happy people. I go to
Yes.
kit car shows, and they're all happy. That makes me happy, and
Yeah.
I think if that's the contribution I've made to motoring society, the fact I can bring a little bit of fun and a bit of happiness, that's how I'd like to. That's what I've got out of low cost, honestly.
Well, I can only speak for myself as a humble kit car builder, and it was a kit that was fashioned after the low cost ethos by one of those many clone manufacturers that have taken your idea and moved it forward. I thank you. I mean, the inspiration that you have given me to finish it, because quite candidly, I did my project with my children. It was a wonderful experience for us. So it's great.
Yeah.
And I quite frankly, I talk to people all around the world, and you will see there's a lot of people that have um, received a life focus because of you and your work.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, that's absolutely tremendous to hear. It really
Yeah.
is.
And it's the truth.
Great. Well, I'm just so pleased there are so many people that are getting so much pleasure and
Yeah.
also learning. At the very start of the low cost phenomenon, the number of schools that became involved. In
Yes.
fact, I was invited over to South Africa by the South African Education Authority,
Hmm.
and Mandela had just recently got into power,
Yes.
and he'd promised his people that if they got him into power, he would provide them with jobs, he would provide them with homes, housing, etc. Well, these people, he'd been in a little while, and of course, they were expecting to get the house and get the job, and it doesn't happen that quickly. We know it, but they didn't know it at the time. Well, an English newspaper, the Times, did a 4-page educational supplement,
Hmm.
and the Education Authority over there had seen a copy of this and thought, this is what we ought to be doing, building cars like this. And what will the pupils get out of it? They're not all going to be motor engineers, but they will be. They will be able to be welders. They'll be
Hmm.
able to be paint sprayers. They'll be able to be upholsterers.
Hmm.
They will be able to do basic maintenance like changing clutches and putting new disc pads in and that sort of
Absolutely.
thing.
Hmm.
At the level, anyway, they sent me over, and it was all paid for. And I spent a month in a school, and um, I I told them the materials I'd want. They got an old car, um, a Ford Escort,
Hmm.
from a scrapyard again, and
Hmm.
all the steel tube and bits and pieces I wanted. So it was all waiting for me when I got over there. I took 3 or 4 of my pupils whose parents paid for their fares because they thought it would be a good experience.
Yes.
And in 2 weeks, from a standing start, we built a low cost, and neither myself or my pupils got our hands dirty. We were advising, we were showing, we were
Hmm.
teaching, right from the basics, how to use a hacksaw, how to mark out a piece of metal. And in 2 weeks, we had the car up and running on its wheels, and we demonstrated it in front of the Education Authority, all the parents of this particular school, and people came from schools all over South Africa. I don't know if it's still happening, but they went away thinking, this is what we're going to do. We're not going to we're not going to build car factories, but we will be able to teach these basic skills by allowing youngsters to have this experience.
Wow.
And that was tremendous. And I told you about the Duke of Edinburgh.
I was just about to segue into that, because you mentioned to me that the educational benefit that the kids are getting from getting their hands into it and learning new skills. Please elaborate. Tell that story.
Yeah. Well, the Royal Naval Training Station at Gosport, we're building 2 Locosts. And I don't know if you've heard of it, but bless him, the Duke of Edinburgh, a lovely chap, had something going for many, many years called the Duke of Edinburgh Award Scheme.
Mm-hmm.
And it's open to all young people, and they have to complete a number of tasks. My memory's not so good. I think they're eligible from the age of 16 up to 18, and they have to complete a number of tasks, and they do outward bound type courses. Does outward bound mean anything to you?
Yes, I've heard of it.
It's mountaineering and abseiling and living in the wild, that sort of thing.
Mm-hmm.
They have to do some community service, which might be helping elderly people or even doing their shopping for them. And the list is quite extensive. And they have to complete these tasks. But one of them was make something, build something. And so many people were writing in to the Duke's office saying, and we're building a Locost. So the Duke of Edinburgh thought, what on earth is a Locost? And told his equerry to go and find out about it.
Mm-hmm.
Well, he did. And he phoned me, and I just thought it was one of my pals having a bit of fun with me. But he phoned me and said, I'm speaking on behalf of the Duke of Edinburgh. He'd like to meet you. Well, he did convince me it was genuine. So arrangements were made for me to go to St. James's Palace, and I met the Duke on a one-to-one. It was just myself, the Duke, and his equerry. I should have had a meeting that lasted 20 minutes, but as you can see from this video call, I can tend to go on and on and on and on.
That's quite all right with me.
Well, after half an hour, and it was obvious I was getting dry. I needed a drink. So the Duke said, would you like a drink, Mr. Champion? And I said, oh, that's very kind of you. Well, I don't think I'd really engaged my brain. And if a chap says to me, would you like a drink? I generally answer, I'll have a pint of lager, please. And I didn't think of where I was and who I was speaking to. And I said, oh, that'd be lovely. A pint of lager would be splendid. So he turned to his equerry and said, do we keep lager? And the equerry said, I believe we do, sir. So the Duke said, well, yes, well, in that case, I'll have a small sherry. And the equerry goes to a phone, and about 4 minutes later, someone comes in carrying a silver tray with a pint of lager and a sherry. So I had another 20 minutes with the Duke, explaining about Locost and the ethos of it. I was overcome by the whole situation, and I'd been instructed for half an hour before I met him of where to stand. There's a little cross on the floor, where to stand. Don't walk towards him when he comes in. He'll come through that door over there. Don't walk towards him. And keep your hands behind your back, clasp behind your back. And told me how to address him, etc. He also said, never, ever, ever turn your back on the Duke. At the end of your conversation, he will turn round and go out of the same door he came in, and then you're free to go. Well, he thanked me very much and said, you know, we're going to send you an invitation, come up to the award ceremony. And I said, thank you very much, sir, and shook his hand and turned my back on him to walk towards the door I came in, thinking, oh my God, I'm not supposed to do this.
Yes.
But 2 or 3 paces, he said, oh, Mr. Champion. I turned around, I said, yes, sir. He said, I forgot. He said, I forgot. My wife knew I was meeting you today, and she tells me that 2 of the girls at a school in Havant, where she is the patron, are also building a Locost, and they have
Really?
and they have a few technical difficulties. If you're going down to Gosport, Duke had asked me to go down to Gosport and see the lads in the college there, and Havant is on your way back from Gosport, and perhaps you could call in there, which I did. I saw the girls. They'd got no support at all, apart from the school gardener, who could weld and had a MIG welder. And they built this car, and it was a darn good effort. And the only problem they had, and the reason that the Queen wanted me to go in, was getting the braking system sorted out. They couldn't find out how to breed the brakes,
Oh, yes.
and the gardener wasn't that au fait with it either. So I had lunch with these 2 girls and the headmistress, sorted their problem out, and had a wonderful time. This is something else that Locost has given me,
Yes.
the opportunity to meet these people, all sorts of people, from South Africa to the Royal Naval Training College to the Queen's School, and all over. It's just
it's humbling.
A wonderful experience.
It's absolutely humbling. Yeah, absolutely amazing story. Those are moments that will live forever. It's fabulous getting that sort of interest, insight about the anecdotes, the stories of how, in a very real way, tangible way, from the very beginning, the low-cost ethos has touched people and made changes in people's lives in the UK and in South Africa. And I can tell you from my work that I do worldwide is I know people in South Africa that are building them. I know people in Argentina, in Chile, in Ecuador, all throughout the United States and Canada, literally around the world, people are now and have been building low costs for years. It is a phenomenon that is still going strong.
And it's created a lot of employment. There are people now that are actually making component parts from wishbones to whole chassis.
Yes.
And it's creating, I mean, I do appreciate there are some people who want to build a Locost, but will much prefer to have the major components like the chassis and the wishbones.
Yes.
You know, I'm quite happy for people to do that. But it's creating work. It's not only giving people fun, and it's creating work. And I don't know if I should touch on this at all, but a lot of the low-cost look-alike manufacturers that came into being, having got a copy of my book and thought, I can start doing this, and they've grown and grown and grown. It's created work for them as well. So I think it's really, in a very, very tiny, small way, helped the British economy as well. The last time we spoke this way with video, you asked me how people who've never done this before can start. Well, I do know that you must not let the book and the whole project daunts you, what you've got to do is start with the smallest component, and that might be the brackets to hold the wishbones and the trailing
Yes.
legs. Build those, put them to one side. Little bits like that will help you develop your welding skills. It might be that as your welding skills develop through the chassis, you go back to them and do it again and think, I could do that better.
Yeah.
But attack it as individual small components, and it will grow. When I was teaching in the school, that's how the pupils did it. I also had a system there of the older pupils would have the younger pupils as trainees.
Yes.
So the young pupils learned from the older pupils whose cars were coming to completion and gained a lot of experience before they started. And it was a cycle that just went on and on. Youngsters built their cars, left the school, but new ones had been seeded. And it is tremendous. Yeah, absolutely tremendous.
Yeah. Well, I can't tell you how valuable this conversation that we're having right now has been to me, not only from the point of view of the work I'm doing to kind of create a video on your behalf, but just personally, because just the feeling I have right here from the inspiration of just what you said, taking that first step, because I think I mentioned I built mine from a kit only because I did not feel that I had the welding skills necessary to build a space frame, because my background was completely different from anything to do with trades. But having said that, now that I got into building my kit, there were parts in it that needed welding, and yes, I got into it. And now I'm not an accomplished welder, but my welds stick. They're good.
Good, excellent.
Hello everyone, Chris Hollier from Avon Rescue. Just wanted to say a couple of words about Ron Champion, the man behind the low-cost movement. I had the tremendous pleasure of going to meet Ron earlier on this year and sat down with him for a cup of coffee and talked for a good couple of hours about cars in general, about his excitement and the adventures he's had along the way and the places that the project has taken him. A thoroughly lovely chap. I got on really well with him. So hopefully he'll get an idea from all these clips of how many people appreciated what he's done for the industry. And it's not often you get to start a whole genre of a project. And he has, single-handedly. The whole low-cost movement wouldn't be here without Ron's input. So good on you, Ron. And hopefully you'll see from all these clips how much it's meant to everybody else around the world.
Hi Ron, it's Mike from Surrey. Thank you very much for your book. Well, my project is still in early stage, but we're getting there. Obviously, I've done a little bit different, like in your book. Also used a different rear axle, not directly from the Ford Escort. Not the English axle which you have suggested. Some other little modifications. For example, your panel rod is adjustable with rod ends. Use some Westfield parts, like for example the roll hook came from Westfield. Pedal box comes from the Chris Gibbs book. Yeah, some frequently also to be seen on the 7 spot, and I got also my own blog. Yeah, once again, thank you very much.
Hey Ron, high cost, low cost Dave here. Thanks so much for everything you did getting the community started, writing the book, and getting us all on the path to building our own vehicles.
Hola a todos, ¿cómo están? Desde Chile quiero mandarle un gran saludo y agradecimiento a Ron Champion. Gracias, Ron.
To Ron Champion, the father of the low cost. Your book has been an inspiration for many people over the years, including myself. Thank you very much, Ron.
This is a shout out to Ron. Because of his book, people like me have built these sort of cars. So with the inspiration from the book, everybody that's made one of these cars has to thank Ron for helping us along the journey. This is Chris, the plumber, from a small shed in Western Victoria. Cheers.
Hello from Rapid 7 Sports Car Kits in Manila, Philippines. Thank you very much, Ron Champion. Mabuhay.
Good morning, Ron Champion. And thank you so much for the inspiration from your book. It has certainly inspired me to get going on my build that has been a dream for many, many, many years. And your book was the inspiration I needed to get myself going and build my dream. Thank you. From Vancouver, Canada. Cheers, mate. Thank you.
Hey Ron, Martin here, a Highlander from the far north of Scotland, now living in Southern California. Just wanted to share a big thank you for your inspiration and allowing me to build these little toys. This is my first Locost, and I'm working on my second one over my shoulder. It's a bit of a longer term project, being all electric. But just wanted to say thank you very much for the inspiration, for the dreams, for the ability to put those dreams into reality. And just a quick story on my first low-cost build. I call it the RP7. The RP stands for Recuperation Project. Some time ago I was suffering quite badly after some surgery, and thinking on it now, I was both physically down and mentally down, and building this car brought me back. And I did challenge myself, being a tight Scotsman. I tried to build the car, cutting the steel tubes with one hacksaw blade. I had to give in about 2/3 of the way through. Ultimately, it required 2 hacksaw blades, but I think I did pretty good. Thanks once again, Ron. All the best.
My name is Al. I'm coming to you from my shop in Victoria, BC. Thank you, Ron Champion, for putting together that book so many years ago. You're responsible for inspiring me to build this 7 here and to spend hours and hours of joy fabricating it. Thank you very much for doing that. You made a big difference in my life and the time that I spent having fun.
Hello from Tools and Track headquarters in Glasgow. Just to say massive thank you, Ron. Even to this day, people are still standing on the shoulders of your giant work, and here is proof example that decades after what you've done, people still use you as inspiration. Thank you.